Hey review family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morris, the review guy, and I'm back again to bring you another video. Better late than never. Welcome back to Worst to Best Albums. I have been working strenuously for the past few months to construct Worst to Best Album lists. I have a ton coming down the conveyor belt, and I thought it would be okay to go ahead and release one. I am actually recording this about 2 months after I have written this one. Obviously, this is all subjective. I put my bias aside for all these bands though and try to look at their records objectively as I possibly can, and today I'm going to be talking about the band Erra, the Birmingham, Alabama progressive metalcore band formed in 2009, signed to Sumerian Records. In many ways, they blend in quite well with a lot of the contemporary progressive metalcore and djent bands, whether you're talking about Born of Osiris and Tesseract, Within the Ruins, and, Periphery. For this list, I'm only going to be talking about their official studio-length albums, meaning I'm not going to be including EPs like Andromeda or Moments of Clarity, but I do highly suggest you check out all of their EPs because they're very good. Their debut EPs, very good. Andromeda is amazing. Moments of Clarity, really damn good. Very underrated vocalist. Sad he wasn't able to continue with the band. Just one final thing before we get into the list, go ahead and post in the comment section below, what is your favorite Erra album? Why? What is your list of favorite Erra albums? And yeah, let's go ahead and get right into the video. This was the only album they released with the founding bassist Adam Hicks, and the bass work isn't that indistinguishable from the rest of their records. Impulse to me sounds like a band that was trying to flesh out their sound. I maybe even prefer Andromeda to this album. Now don't get me wrong, I think that the band was in top form as they possibly could be. Their songwriting was still good, Jesse Cash was still very good on the clean vocals, Garrison Lee was very good on the unclean vocals, and the overall mythological songwriting was a constructed megalith of this record that really made it be boasted up in its quality. However, memorability-wise, flow-wise, cohesion-wise, I'm not sure if this album necessarily carried over as much power on repeated listens, and especially through the entire record from start to finish when it comes to dynamics, because most of these tracks follow pretty strict patterns of the djent formula. But you can't really deny Impulse's influence on the djent scene and bands that kind of took their sound and took it to the next level, and without Impulse we wouldn't have gotten their next records that really built upon the founding blocks of Impulse in just a much, much better way. However, tracks like White Noise and Pattern Interrupt and Seven and Valbara, they still slap pretty damn hard. This is their fourth studio-length album, and it actually cracked my top 5 albums of the year.
I like certain bands. This signifies why I love Erra so much. They are such a good band.
Back when I heard the singles that they released in anticipation for the record, I believe I covered both of them in track review, Disarray as well as Breach. It felt like a more hyper-futuristic take on what they did on their previous record, Drift. And this is the first record to actually have new producers as well, which I fully can hear the differences, the nuances between the production style on Neon and the production style on, say, Drift and Augment and Impulse. Everything sounds much more crisp, and a band that I didn't think could really sound more cleaner and pristine pushed above and beyond and broke boundaries and really ended up sounding more crisp than ever. A lot of Jesse Cash's vocals are handled with this careful arrangement of reverb, such as on the track Breach. Erra has always been good at making good hooks, catchy hooks, or hooks that just stick in a hard way, but Neon really took it to the next level. Tracks like Ghost of Nothing have some of my favorite choruses on any Erra project, same with a track like Disarray. Jesse Cash is aging like a fine wine on all of Erra's records, just bringing his vocal standard and his vocal acrobatics to a whole new level every single record they come out with. I just see Neon as a logical step in the right direction from what they did on Drift, just with a more hyper-futuristic production production and some better hook game. Now obviously this was the second album to feature JT Cavey of Texas in July fame, who joined the band during Drift, and he doesn't really experiment that much with his vocals. You can see he's trying to on newer releases, such as the track that they released, Eye of God. He definitely is taking his, unclean vocals in a new direction. Reminds me a little bit of Garrison Lee on Augment. However, it's still a very solid record, very much above Impulse, but lower than the next two, obviously. This was also the first album to be produced by Nick Sampson, as well as the first studio-length album to be released on Sumerian Records. Moments of Clarity was obviously released there when they signed them, but this is their first studio-length album on Sumerian Records. This was actually my very first Erra album that I ever heard, and it was like nothing I had really ever heard from the djent scene before. The production, once I had heard the band's previous material on Augment and on Impulse, it was completely evident that they had reinvented their sound a little bit to more melodicism that's completely evident on tracks like, Irreversible and Skyline, as well as Drift especially, which is just a melodic haymaker and a half. And the production really helped boost it up to sound even more flawless in the technicality and the proficiency of the instrumentation and of the compositions. The songwriting obviously takes on a different approach, considering Garrison Lee was one of the main songwriters of the band prior to the release of, Moments of Clarity and Drift, and he always liked to focus around mythology and things of that nature, especially on Impulse, mostly on Augment as well. Drift was more relatable issues, it was more personalized issues, it was more about real life as opposed to these mythological themes. This album, in my opinion, is one of the most flawless djent albums from start to finish. I mean, it starts out with one of the better djent tracks, period, the Luminesce, and then it just continues on this trajectory of blending melodicism with heaviness, with Irreversible and Skyline and Orchid, and it ends with an amazing Erra track, The Hypnotist. On Augment, they obviously ended off with Dementia, a very long track, but here they end with Safe Haven and The Hypnotist, which are both long. Ear Candy. It was obvious that signing to Sumerian Records, getting the new production, getting the new vocalist, made them focus even more on melodicism, because even on Moments of Clarity, when you had Ian Eubanks, you could really hear that heaviness still coming out, and while there are heavy moments on Drift, I would say that Neon is more heavy than Drift in many ways, and Drift is by far their most clean record, their most nice sounding record, their most, softest record in many ways, and that's saying a lot for Erra. And there can only be one. There can only be one at the top. We're talking about Augment. Setting aside my bias for this band, of them being one of my favorite bands, and just talking to you one-on-one and saying I have heard, at this point, I've probably heard hundreds of djent records or progressive metalcore albums, and Augment is one of the only ones that have the distinction that I can listen to it over and over and hear different things than before. It is just a masterpiece. It is a magnum opus. There are so many little nuances on this record, the way Alpha Seed flows into Pulse, the way Dementia has the progressions throughout, but the main thing is something that Impulse didn't have, something that Drift didn't have, something that Moments of Clarity didn't have, something that Neon doesn't have. That being the fact that they have a fantastic way on this record of blending heaviness and softness. Hybrid Earth, one of their heaviest tracks, period. But you also have tracks that have the melodicism like Alpha Seed and like Pulse near the latter half. Dementia really feels like one of the best Erra tracks that they have ever released. It's a flawless track listing from start to finish with absolutely no duds to be found, and I can say that because I've listened to this record so many times and not gotten sick of it. It's a tour de force of talent. The lyricism is fantastic. The playing is fantastic. Jesse Cash was an absolute beast on many of these tracks, and Garrison, he kills it. His vocal dynamics on this record are fantastic. Sean Price's bass work also lived up to what Adam Hicks had done on Impulse. and the drum work is focused, the drum work is punchy, and those djent riffs are just ear candy. I will use that term again, ear candy. It also had a more somewhat raw production if you really want to go there. Brian Hood also produced this record, which is the same person that produced Impulse, so the sound is quite similar, much less clean, technically speaking, than Drift and Neon and Moments of Clarity, but still very flawless in the production style, don't get me wrong. So I definitely want to know what your favorite Erra album is, as well as what your favorite Erra albums are. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Go crazy. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Let me know what episodes of Worst to Best you would like to see in the future. I'll definitely take them into high consideration. Smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads, and stay for the end screen because I'll be linking some videos you might be interested in. You know who it is. My name is J Morse, Third View Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.